Do you really need the Motion Picture Association of America to tell you what's appropriate to watch at the movies, or would you rather make those decisions on your own?
Grindhouse is now just 1 week away from theaters, but we'll never get to see it the way filmmakers intended, all because of the Motion Picture Association of America's rating system. A rating can have a serious effect on how a movie is marketed and who is allowed to see it. Grindhouse pushes the boundaries of the aging rating system. The film teetered on the edge of an NC-17 rating with its gory, sexy, and violent images. But directors Tarantino and Rodriguez made changes in order to secure a more marketable R rating. Now learning from their Grindhouse experience, the MPAA wants to scrap the stigma of the NC-17 rating and replace it with what they call a hard R rating. Should the MPAA continue to dictate what's acceptable in Hollywood, or is it time to ditch the morality police altogether? Let's go out to the movies. It's The Loop.
All right, this is going to be a good one. My guest tonight from San Francisco, our resident film expert, Chris Gore, is here, and from Dallas, film columnist from Movie City News, David Poland. Gentlemen, welcome to hopefully a censorship-free loop. That depends on you, Chris, I guess, because you've got the mouth. Let's start with you then.
Oh, yeah.
Why do we need the MPAA, Chris? Sell me, please.
Well, the thing is, we need the MPAA because the alternative is censorship from our government. I mean, look...
Is that the alternative, though? I hear that all the time. Is that really the only other option?
Look, if Attack of the Show was aired in China, it would be labeled pornographic. Really, look, the MPAA is the enemy that we know, and filmmakers have been able to use this to their advantage. I mean, look, they only cut 17 seconds out of Grindhouse. I mean, Rodriguez and Tarantino should just throw that up on the internet and let the public decide.
Well, that's one way to look at it. We'll get to those 17 seconds in just a second. But, David, what do you think? Does the MPAA rating system work?
Well, the reason the MPAA started, I mean, it really doesn't work for quote-unquote adult movies, for movies that are meant for, not for kids. However, it has kept us from government censorship, and that was the purpose, really. Jack Valente has always claimed otherwise, but the truth is, it's kept us from being censored not only by the government of the United States, but by city, state by state decisions about censorship. So in a world without the MPAA, there's a very real chance one Grindhouse would play in Los Angeles, another one would play in Dallas, another one would play in Phoenix. Is it all depending on what local people wanted it to happen?
Is it just too idealistic then, David, to think of a world without any sort of censorship, perhaps with guidelines or suggestions and ratings, but with zero actual censorship?
Well, there's no country in the world that I know of that doesn't have it. They have different kinds of censorship. Some countries are very anti-nudity, some countries are very anti-violence, but every one of the countries that this will go to for the great European, notion of freedom and everything else, this movie will actually be more censored in other places. To me, the biggest loss in this picture is for Harvey Weinstein only having 20 seconds pulled out. He wanted 20 minutes pulled out. Right. So when he goes to sell the unrated DVD, then people will feel they need to have it. I guarantee you, actually, that Rodriguez and Tarantino in this case put at least 5 minutes of material in this film that they expected the MPAA to reject in order to give them something to reject.
Sure. Well,
that's how people do it now.
And Chris just brought up that 17 to 20 seconds about a minute ago, and I want to get Chris's opinion here because it's okay to believe that Rodriguez and that Tarantino may have left in 5 extra minutes of hardcore stuff, but do you really think the studios let them shoot it the way that they wanted and let them present it to the MPAA the way they wanted, or do you think they cut some stuff aside from that 20 seconds knowing there's no way it's going to make it? And furthermore, should the MPAA even really be able to limit those 20 seconds in the movie? It's still being called like over the top and brilliantly violent. Should 20 seconds be a make or break for a movie's marketability?
I mean, it's definitely not a make or break, but it does give the opportunity for the filmmakers to release multiple versions of the movie. We all know that there's going to be an unrated version that's going to come to DVD. I'm going to rush out and buy it. I mean, based on, everything I've seen so far, and this thing is going to be amazing. But there's also going to be a separate version that's going to be released in Europe. They're actually releasing the films as 2 completely separate movies in Europe. So there's different versions. Kill Bill, there were multiple versions of that film as well. I mean, Tarantino seems to not mind this, and the MPAA, it's a guideline, it's a club that you want to belong to this club, so you can have your film in wide commercial release. And you have to abide by those rules if you want to get your film in wide release. The only way to do it.
That's true. But I got to go to David here because, David, I'm curious. When it comes to these films and you hear director's cuts, extended editions, and
right.
This is the way they really wanted the film to be presented, when they're saying that before the movie comes to theaters, could that maybe be a red flag for the studios that, hey, maybe this is why your ticket sales aren't huge? They could wait a month and see it at home on their 60-inch plasma?
Okay, for one thing, the ticket sales are huge. That's the ridiculous argument. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, is that if you look at these movies, you look at 300, you can't really argue that people aren't going to the movies for these, even for stupid movies. And God knows 300 was as stupid as they get.
Very true.
But the biggest problem with Grindhouse, the thing that Harvey would love to do is cut half an hour.
Wait, Chris, you think Dave's wrong on that one?
Well, I have a disagreement with David about 300. I think 300 is absolutely brilliant, but that's a totally different discussion.
Right, but Chris, would it be crazy to assume that somebody might not go see this movie, Grindhouse, because they're waiting for that DVD version?
No, nobody will go not see it because of that. And in fact, Harvey Weinstein wishes the movie was half an hour shorter so they could get more play dates in, because ultimately the movie is too long. The biggest problem they have commercially is they won't be able to get enough screenings of the movie because it's so long.
All right. Well,
so
for the record, I'm one of those guys who might hold off for the DVD, but I understand. I'm in a
but
rare
you're over
minority.
25.
This is true.
You're not the audience for this movie anymore. All of us who are over 30 are, out of the business already. They don't even care what we think. People over 30 and people have families, people have hard jobs, all those things, want DVDs sooner than later. They want to watch them.
All right.
But kids will go see the movies regardless, and they're not. And they'll go pay for it once, and then they'll buy the unrated version.
Okay.
The biggest scam with the MPAA is that is when your PG-13 movie is released unrated, as though it's a hard R.
All right, well, let's talk about the hard R real quick,
that.
David. And by the way, you got to read the wiki. I'm 24. Chris, the hard R rating, final word to you, sir. Is this going to be a new and improved NC-17, or at this point, should they just say, well, the line's going to get blurred, R is adult, it's fine, it doesn't matter. If it's an R movie, it's 18 or older, anything goes.
I think hard R is a good thing because in terms of NC-17 films, there's only been 19 movies that have been rated NC-17. All have been commercial failures. I think hard R is a good idea because we live in a country that doesn't like nudity. And I'm hoping that hard R will change that for once and for all.
You just spoke to an audience that loves that nudity, Chris, but I understand completely. I want to thank our guests, Chris and David, for keeping us in a somewhat censored loop. I'm sorry, we're out of time. But listen, when I first heard about Grindhouse, I couldn't wait to see it. Blood, violence, sex, what is not to like? But then I heard that the filmmakers had to make some cuts, 20 seconds or otherwise, to appease the MPAA. And look, I have no problems with ratings. It's important for everyone to know what level of gore that they're in for. But the MPAA should not have the power to limit anyone's ability to view said gore. I mean, that's your decision or your parents' decision, and at least you can argue with them.
Attack of the Show, weeknights at 7, only on G4.